Hello, Gerard.
How's the weekend?
Very happy that footy has finished on Mondays and public holidays.
What was your highlight of the weekend? You never come in and talk about being a supporter. Who do you barrack for, by the way?
We barrack for champion data.
Okay.
We barrack for whoever is representing the numbers well, Gerard. And I heard you say this, Kane, last week or 2 weeks ago. You barrack for the things that you actually say during the week.
Your opinions.
100% you do. You hang off them.
Very dangerous doing that.
Yeah, absolutely you do. So I was barracking very hard yesterday for Collingwood, given that we gave them a bit of love a couple of weeks ago. And you just, 100% you do.
You also said that they're far too reliant on Petrarca and Gawn. And the others need to step up.
So my team that I barrack for changes quite frequently to answer that question.
What
Jet.
I do like about you, you're true to it's not who they're playing, it's how they're playing, and you're not worried about injuries as such. I mean, clearly it's a critical point, but you were strong that Collingwood were playing a hell of a lot better than Melbourne despite their injuries. Their method was so much better, and you advised strongly to tip Collingwood.
Yeah, and not often, not all the time that works, but we did something on this show a couple of weeks ago around it's how you're playing, not the who you're playing, and full credit to what Collingwood are doing at the moment. System wins, and they're in as good a shape as anyone, and we'll touch on them shortly.
Okay, let's kick it off with the usual overall observations. What do you got for us tonight?
Yeah, so sitting back yesterday and watching that game and seeing the dominant performance that Jack Crisp put in, and I no longer believe that he is an underrated player in the competition. I think the industry recognises the performance of this guy and just how good he has been for quite some time, and now I think we're appreciating some players like a Dylan Moore and a Sam Switkowski that have been rated quite highly for a while, and now you're seeing their performances, and I don't think that they're underrated as such anymore. Yep. They're now elevated and recognised within the industry, and fair enough too. So off the back of those few players that we've just mentioned before, I just wanted to run a few names past the two of you. To see who are the next sort of potential underrated players at the moment within the industry that might not be in that category in 12 months' time, 18 months' time.
So their performance is well ahead of their reputation right now.
Yeah, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are recognised and appreciated within the industry, but just thought I'll just raise some names.
Give us one, Kane, that comes to mind for you.
It may not fall in the right category, but the first name that comes to mind, and he's young, so... But Bodie Hewland from he is a serious player.
Played two rippers, hasn't he?
He's going to be amazing. I was captivated by what he did. Now, so he's probably a young emerging player, more so than someone that's been around for a while that's underrated, and we haven't rated them. So, but give me a little bit to think about it as you and Hoyne discuss yours. Hoyne, I'm sure you've got some numbers to back up your thoughts.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people out there will have their own thoughts as well, which is good as well. So we'll start with a player from Collingwood, and I just want to throw up Pat Lipinski.
Okay.
So Pat Lipinski, currently at the moment, is the 51st rated player in the competition. He is flying. We talked about Collingwood, I reckon, 6 to 8 weeks ago, and it was really Nick Dacos and this guy that were the only top 100 rated players that they had. Braden Maynard has now fallen into that group as well. But this guy, and just watching him yesterday, if you just cast your mind back to yesterday, big game, you knew Melbourne were going to come out with full steam. He's clean hands to get those 2 score assists and 2 score involvements to start the day. The clean handball to Hoskin Elliott, then the clean handball to the next goal as well. What he does is high impact. He doesn't need too much of the ball. 19 disposals and almost a goal a game in the role that he's playing is going extremely well. We saw on the weekend, just gone, great list management decision by Carlton, Elijah Hollands. So
that's a ripper.
So you look at Carlton heading into this year, and the best players in the competition, like a Petrarca and a Bont and a De Goey and a Martin and Dangerfield and these guys. As good as their midfield group has been for quite some time, they didn't really have that centre forward midfielder. And now he's come in, and over the last 2 weeks, he is playing that 50-50 mid-forward time. And the game that he had on the weekend, that was his highest rated game of the season. So, so currently he's a top 70 player in the competition.
What was the weekend's rated?
just over 20. So it was, So he was superb. So that's another addition to this midfield group that Carlton didn't have previously. So
with Gerard to come back in, it looks awfully dangerous and much more multi-pronged.
Yeah. So and then if we move to another club, we move to GWS. So. I'm going to get into GWS conversation a little bit, later on. But there's a lot of individuals that get recognised within the GWS program, and fair enough as well. But this guy behind the footy is, one of the main reasons that they're actually competing at the moment, and that's Harry Himmelberg. So he's in the top 25 players in the competition this year. He's the second best player at the moment at GWS. And his ability to play, a versatile role. He's played 400 minutes as a key defender this year, and then he's played 800 minutes as that, roaming general defender this year. His ability to be able to use the ball and create from behind centre. A lot of that focus has previously gone into Lockie Whitfield, and fair enough too. Lockie Whitfield's season last year was superb. This year, he's having nowhere near the same impact, Lockie Whitfield. But this guy at the moment is flying in terms of what he's doing behind the footy. So I think he's someone that needs to be recognised and have a bit of time spent into him.
Bit of love for Josh Battle over this weekend. Would he fall into that category? What's his numbers like?
Yeah, so Josh Battle, in terms of his intercept work, he's one of the best interceptors along with Callum Wilkie at St Kilda. He probably doesn't have the absolute damage off the back of those intercepts that some of the best key defenders or halfbackers do in the competition. He's going along nicely, but I'm not too sort of concerned about him if I'm an opposition coach at the moment.
Give me a podium with intercept backs that distribute well. I assume Get McGovern's one. Stewart would be 2 until he's starting to get tagged.
Yep, so Stewart over the last couple of years, no one's generated more scores off the back of their intercept work than what he has. And then Nick Vlosten's another one who's sort of, is really important in that phase.
0433 90 out 11 16. Underrated players. Send your suggestions through. Hoyne's given us his backed up by numbers, and you can have your say as well. We'll read those out.
There's just a couple of more that I just want to get through. I just want to get through this quickly. So Tristan Cherry. So a couple of years ago, if you just cast your mind back, Kane and G, to trade period, and St Kilda came hard. They came hard for this guy, and North held on to him and said, no, we're going to keep him. Right now, he's the 5th best ruckman in the competition. So when he's a ruckman, he's having the 5th best impact in the competition. Good
chase on the weekend.
Yeah, that was a good chase, wasn't it? So his ability to be able to win contest and clearance as a ruckman is up there with some of the better ruckmen in the competition. Really interested in this guy from Brisbane, Darcy Wilmot. So I reckon Darcy Wilmot, at the moment, he's almost a top 70 player in the competition. Only Dane Zorko and Harris Andrews are having more impact on matches than what this guy is doing.
Good draft pick.
In terms of what he does with ball in hand, I'm not sure if you think the same, Kane and G, but just when he wins it, it just looks like something's going to happen and something unique is going to happen. It's not just the plain boring options. So when he's exiting D50 this year, he's taking on the second hardest kicks of any player in the competition. And more often than not, he's pulling them off. And then as a result, Brisbane's ball movement this year is top 4, top 5 in the competition. I just reckon at some stage over the next 12 to 18 months, this guy's going to be elevated into this midfield group and to be that little bit of point of difference because he is quite unique. And the last one I just want to put on the radar is a Hawks player, Jack Scrimshaw. So another really good addition.
High draft pick, but struggled for a long time.
Yeah, struggled at Gold Coast. Hawthorn took a punt on him. Really good addition to their makeup. He's a top 100 player in the competition this year and has actually been quite consistent in 3 of his last 4 seasons. We talk a lot on this show, and Kane, we've mentioned just how good Hawthorn are at the post-clearance contested possession game. He is the second best post-clearance contested possession player in the competition. Not just at Hawthorn, in the competition. So his ability to be able to hold up behind the footy and then distribute and then impact the game. James Sicily is a star and he's having a superb season. Weddle's getting a lot of love at the moment. Amon and Impey and these guys get a lot of love. This guy's got to start getting recognised in terms of the impact that he's having for Hawthorn behind the footy.
Who's winning their best and fairest, Hawthorn? I heard a number of people say Amon.
He's having a good year, Amon. He's having a really good year. That's a really good question. They've actually got
big loss for Port Adelaide, Kane, because he's exactly what they need.
Yeah,
I'd probably say Dylan Moore, I reckon.
Yeah, all right, Hawks fans, there's a lot of Hawk Talk podcasters listening to this program. Who would be winning your best and fairest? Nick Newman's getting some love Lewis Milliken from the
good player.
Swans, Ollie Florent getting some love, Marby Chol getting some love as well, Charlie Comben as well. Hoyne, I pinned a text before you even came on. Someone just wanted to clear up something. If a player takes a mark and the siren sounds and he kicks the ball back to the umpire at the end of a quarter, they wanted to know, I know the answer to this, but just your thoughts. They wanted to know whether that counts as a possession.
No, that does not count.
But if they're
as
having a shot
disposal.
at goal,
Kane, do you want a job at champion, Kane?
does it have to score?
If he's having a realistic shot at goal,
and what if it falls short
counts.
and he doesn't make the distance? Counts?
It counts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds
That's
like
that's the only time it counts. If you're having a realistic shot.
Somebody
at goal.
lost a bet to me, Kane,
That-
and they're
yes.
trying to clarify.
Someone's put the over and under on disposals and just fallen under.
I'm just impressed with how Kane answered that. He already knew.
Hey, Hoyne, let's get into your 7 main talking points. You want to start with the Pies?
Yeah, so I just want to, sort of have that Collingwood conversation. Clearly they have a lot of injuries at the moment, and they're doing an amazing job to be where they are, considering the personnel that they have on their sidelines. But one area of the ground that hasn't really been affected too much is their back six, back seven. And yes, Frampton over the last couple of weeks has made the move, as a key forward in place of Brodie Myercheck, but then Charlie Dean's come in, and I thought Charlie Dean's actually been quite good the last couple of weeks. So put Charlie Dean aside. So Moore, Maynard, Noble, Quainer and Howe have pretty much been a mainstay of this back group for the last 6 weeks. Howe missed a couple of weeks, but has been there for the 4 of those 6 week period. And then what you're seeing at the moment, this is why you're so bullish in terms of what Collingwood are going to be able to do, and why I consider them at the moment the second best team in the competition, is that when the opposition start with the footy at any time, they are the second hardest team in the competition to actually turn that possession into a score against. When you go inside Collingwood's D50, good luck. They are the second hardest team again in the competition to score against. Their pressure game, that's all you're hearing. So we hear from Melbourne over the last couple of years, contest and defence. Swear to God, every time you hear anyone from Collingwood speak in front of the media, whether that be players or coaches, you're guaranteed to hear the word pressure 4, 5, 6 times within that interview. They are the third best pressure team in the competition over that last 6 week period. I'll come back to you over that. I won't give you some false data, G. I'll give you the actual correct data on that. So that and when you have a look at this, that's why last year, the fact for them to actually win it last year, heading into September, their defensive profile was nowhere near like this, and it wasn't like that for a good couple of months heading into it. So for the fact for them to to actually gather themselves and then to actually get defensively sound for a 3 or 4 week period was an amazing effort to the whole footy club. But that there is going to be extremely difficult to beat for anyone if that continues. Let alone off the back, their offensive work at the moment is going okay, but then you add into the personnel that that then will actually come back into this team over the next few weeks. It's perfectly placed at the moment to actually launch with some absolute genuine substance behind what they're actually doing. That continues with these personnel issues. That's why they're still going to be hard to beat. And that's why you trust them despite not actually having their best 22, 25 out there at the moment.
Frightening for everyone, really. They got North this week as well, don't they?
Yeah, where do you have them, Kane? Do you have them?
Well, I was doubting them for no other reason than the personnel issues. And I thought the issues that they had weren't sort of short-term. It wasn't as if to Hammy, he'll be back in 2 or 3. It was a bit of question over DeGoey. Pendlebury was longer term. Mitchell, who knows if he'll play. I mean, he's on a scooter at the moment with one foot that he can't put any weight on. So the injuries that they had were long term. So I thought, how are they going to get through this? But now it's a completely different story after seeing what they did yesterday. I thought they were pretty good against the Bulldogs as well, off the back of the trip to Perth and 1 day's less break than what the Bulldogs had. So.
Yeah, so Brisbane at the moment, so their profile has actually switched a little bit over the last 6 weeks. So the first 7, 8 weeks of the year, they were holding up really well defensively for the majority of matches. It was their inability to connect going inside 50. It was their inability to be able to get bang for buck off the entries. That's completely flipped now over the last 6 weeks, and now this is a Brisbane profile that we have been familiar with over the last 4 to 5 years. So there's no more damaging team with ball in hand over the last 6 weeks than Brisbane. There's no better ball movement team in the competition over the last 6 weeks than Brisbane. And now they have the second best forward 50 in the competition after having the third worst forward 50 in the competition. And their accuracy's gone from 18th to mid-table. That's all it needed to get to, is just get out of that 18th bracket and get to that mid-table bracket. And sometimes you sit there, and we talked about this 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, not to panic longer term if you're Brisbane. It's frustrating and it's disappointing with what's happening, but the longer term picture is not to panic. Sometimes with these injuries, you unearth players that potentially would not have got exposed if the injuries didn't exist. And there's two that come straight to mind. I'm not too sure what you guys think of these two. But Logan Morris, over the last couple of weeks, is showing some significant signs that
I'd assume he's going to be the rising star tomorrow.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you who else there is. But over the last 6 weeks, he's the fourth best key forward in the competition.
I text Swanee halfway through the game, said, this kid's a ripper.
And he just makes good decisions with ball in hand.
You know what else helps? When Eric Hipwood plays like 2008 Buddy Franklin. Like, what is going on there?
That was unbelievable.
The gulf between that and well done to him. So firstly, tip your hat. It's as good and competitive game as I've ever seen, and as good a key forwards game as we've seen this year. The bad is, how can you go from that, and we're not expecting that every week, to touching the footy 6 times a game? Like I said last year, he's got more years left on his contract than he gets disposals, and it was actually spot on. And then he turns a performance like that where he has 20 and kicks 6 and competes like you wouldn't believe.
I'm surprised they didn't give him BOG. They gave it to Lockie Neal.
Yeah, I thought Hipwood was the best player in the round.
Yeah, 100%.
And then the other one too is Bruce Revel on the wing as well. So you look at Revel on the wing, and he's a top 10 winger since making his debut, and then that allows them to use a Jared Berry on a Marcus Bontempelli on the weekend, where he has been predominantly played as that winger. So then all of a sudden this forward 50 looks more dangerous because they're back to having 6, 7 genuine options in that forward 50. They've found another winger in Bruce Revel as well. They've been able to utilise Berry in a different role. You guys were just talking about taggers across the competition, whether or not Berry does that moving forward. But now they've got more options at their disposal that they didn't have 13 weeks ago. So yes, there are injuries. Everyone's got injuries at the moment, but sometimes you can turn that around into a positive and unearth, some individuals that you might not have given chances to if that didn't exist.
Kane, I'll be staggered if the Lions don't continue with Berry as a tagger. When you consider the job he did on Oliver when Oliver was Oliver, and the job he did on Bont when the Bont's the Bont. I just think to myself, why would you go away from that as another part of your midfield troop?
Yeah, so the thing that I think works for them, it's almost like a psychological boost where, okay, I've experienced this myself. It's not just Berry versus Bont, it's Brisbane Lions versus Bont. And it's the target that you have on one player, and it's that single-mindedness to make this a really difficult night. And you could see the angst. You could see the aggro from Brisbane, and you could see Libba lose his cool and give free kicks away. Yep. Berry himself got 4 free kicks, and then that disrupts everything. Then you've got the coach's box going, what are we going to do with Bont? We're going to send him forward. He goes forward. Oh, perfect. We got Bontempelli forward. Yep, he kicked 3 goals, but you've got him out of the centre bounce. Then you can rely on the others. Good luck to Riley Sanders, as good as he's going to be, but who would you rather, Bont or Riley Sanders in the centre bounce? That's the things that it does when you do that. Now, they play St Kilda this week. Is there anyone from the Saints that Berry is an ideal match? Probably not. Like, he wouldn't bother tagging Steele. He's not a great matchup for Hill, he's not going to go to Wanganeen Miller, who's probably their most dangerous. He may go to Sinclair, but once again, I don't think so it may not be every week, and they may not need it this week. But when you have a performance like that, it's the target for the whole team, not just for the player. And to me, that's when Brisbane play their best.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I'm with you, Kane, in terms of this week. I'm not sure, if they're going to send someone to him, but just to be able to have that when needed, is a point of difference for him.
Quickly on someone to Wanganeen Miller.
Yeah. Whether that's
don't know if it's Berry,
the right one or not, but yeah, you shut him down.
Berry's just that inside centre bounce, lockdown sort of tagger.
Quick word on the Bombers, Hoyne.
Yeah, so I called him during the week. Post the Sunday game, the Essendon Demons on the weekend. It just looked like it was a Melbourne game on the weekend. So the inside 50s and then just the lack of return for it. So to create 38 forward half intercepts, which is off the charts, and then to only get 1 goal off the back of that was a little bit disappointing. But if I'm Essendon, what you saw on the weekend against Carlton is further proof that this team has changed and has changed for the better.
And he's in the hunt.
You play like that, they are absolutely in the hunt to get to preliminary final weekend.
Yep.
So if they had taken their chances in front of goal, they win that game by 2 goals. So right now their profile...
Predicted score?
Yeah, 2 goals. So right now their profile on both sides of the ball is top 6 in terms of getting scoreboard return. And their ball movement game on both sides of the ball is top 6 in the competition. There's no one else that has that profile at the moment over the last 6 weeks.
Geez, Bormy, Mad Bomber Bormy, he'll be pretty excited to hear that.
I wonder if you can get the Guess Who clue out in 20 seconds, Hoyne.
It's a team Guess Who this week. Across the season, who has scored the 3rd most points of any team from their back half?
Which team has scored the 3rd most points from their back half across the season? Gerard, who do you think?
I have no idea. Why the 3rd most, Hoyne?
It's a story I want to get into. It's a discussion I want to get into. It's a not so obvious, which is always what we try and do.
Back half.
I wonder,
St Kilda?
Yeah, I was going to say St
Kilda. We've had a few questions. Yeah, had a few come through. We've had Geelong come through, Adelaide come through, Brisbane, Freo. I haven't had a St Kilda one. You got one for us, Kane?
Have you had a North Melbourne?
No, we haven't had a North Melbourne, and probably fair enough.
We had a Hawthorn.
Hawthorn? No, Hawthorn aren't there.
Okay.
No, Hawthorn aren't there. No, the Pies aren't there either.
The Blues.
But I'll give you a round of applause, G, because you've got it right. St Kilda.
Okay.
So the reason why I wanted to throw this up, and this is the reason for the Guess Who tonight, is just, and Joey did this, a couple of weeks ago on AFL 360, just around how St Kilda actually play and the narrative around them and what to look for this Friday night coming up against Brisbane. So Sydney are number 1 in terms of scoring out of their back half.
Yep.
Adelaide are number 2. St Kilda are number 3, and Geelong are number 4. So we've mentioned on this show all year that we've talked about forward half game for 10, 15 years. But the reality is over 4 of the last 5 premiers have been number 1 at scoring out of the back half. So you need to have that ability to be able to get out when the game's going against you and actually get some sort of scoreboard return. So we have a look at the last 6 weeks, is what we talk about a lot on this show. St Kilda, in terms of how they move the ball, is almost identical to the best team in the competition in Sydney. And no one questions Sydney's offensive ball movement.
There's a reason for that. I'm gonna have to push back, Hoyne. I'm gonna have to.
Hang on, let him make his argument.
I like the pushback.
Give us your argument.
So in terms of how often they go forward, they don't go forward as much as some other teams in the competition, but either does Sydney. They don't kick as long as what some teams in the competition do, but either does Sydney. In terms of the average metres gained that they get per kick, 25 metres per kick. Sydney, 25 metres per kick. Their ball movement in terms of moving it from one end of the ground to the other last 6 weeks, 5th in the comp. Sydney, 4th in the comp. The one difference between the two is that Sydney are taking the 5th easiest kicks going inside 50. St Kilda are taking the 3rd hardest kicks going inside 50. The connection piece going, Sydney are number 1 as a result of taking the easier kicks inside 50. St Kilda are 18th in the competition for taking. Is
there a measure on speed though? Like, because my objection would be Sydney are taking the easier option inside 50 because they move the ball quicker, so that easier option presents. Whereas I watch the Saints and the eye would tell you, gee, they move it slow and everyone gets back. So by the time they're ready to kick it inside 50, every opposition player has plugged the hole and then they're forced to take the hard kick. I don't know if you've got a measure on actual time on a clock of how quickly they're moving the ball.
Great question. 2-part answer. We're currently actually working on a ball movement speed, sort of metric, which I'll hopefully be able to drop on this show in a few weeks' time, which will absolutely have the proper answer to that.
You're going exclusive.
Well, we go exclusive on this show, don't we? We give you guys the best, so we'll give you guys first double at that.
And I guess the other one
for
me is, so if they're averaging 70 points a game, which is, I don't know, 4th worst, only sort of North, Richmond, West Coast score fewer points than the Saints, and they're the 3rd most scores from their back half. Where are they not scoring from? So where are they breaking down completely in elsewhere areas?
Their connection in the forward half of the ground. So you have a look at their personnel. I think we could all agree their 2 or 3 best ball users, Hill, Wanganeen, Malera, and Sinclair. They're all mainly back half players. So, there's been a lot of discussion around Wanganeen, Malera and at what stage do you move him? Like a Harry Sheasel potentially. Do you actually move him to be that half-forward creator? Or do you actually just leave him where he is? He's having great impact on the game. No one has greater impact on the game through their field kicking than what this guy does.
Surprised he hasn't been tagged, and it'll come.
Do you actually look to move him in the forward half of the ground? Do you look to actually move Sinclair in the forward half of the ground? Because they have the talent there. The one that's going to be interesting to watch is Liam Henry. So they're using Liam Henry in this high half-forward role. He's missed, best part of almost 2 months of the season through that severe hamstring injury. He started the year really well, starting to come back into it now. Could he be that connector going inside 50? You talked about Essendon before. We talked about their lack of connection going inside 50. Looks so much different when Nick Martin was actually deployed in that role and get a creative ball user. Not easier said than done, but they do have a potential to have a look at it. So it's not through a lack of want to be boring and controlled and sort of set up behind the ball. They actually have a little bit of speed on the game, and they're actually moving it with a little bit of aggression and some success. The lack of talent to find those really clear and obvious options in the forward half is a massive issue.
A-grade distributors just down on a couple of absolute A-graders would make a huge difference.
Yeah, 1 or 2 will make a big difference.
Now, we've had a lot of a response to the Collingwood competitive balance issue. A lot of text coming through. Can you just explain that a little bit more closely?
It's a really dangerous territory for me to get
like
into.
it.
Pretty self-explanatory, isn't it?
It's a really dangerous. So just hypothetical. If it's a Sydney v Collingwood grand final, Collingwood are playing 7 of their last 8 games of the home and away season at the G, and Sydney could potentially rock up to the MCG grand final day and haven't played there since April.
Yeah. And just check out Collingwood's record at the G as well.
Check out that.
They said it yesterday during the call. Craig McRae's actual record, the MCG,
Phenomenal.
is frightening. And the last time Sydney were at the MCG, they played against Geelong, who play there a bit more than Sydney, and I found out it's a huge advantage, just as Richmond had theirs for all those years. What about the Giants?
I cannot wrap my head around what is happening to this footy team at the moment.
Are they good or not?
No, at the moment it is. With being a little bit of respect, it's a horrible profile at the moment. So we talk a lot on this show, and we'll keep talking about the turnover game. That is the game that you need to excel in. First 8 weeks of the year, they were the number 1 team in the competition at getting scoreboard return off turnover. The next 6 weeks, they are the worst team in the competition. Put that into context, that has never happened before in our 25 years of doing this. We've never seen in the one season a team go from number 1 in an 8-week period to number 6, to the worst team in the competition.
Did the turnaround coincide with Tom Stewart being tagged?
GWS.
Oh, sorry, GWS.
Yeah, no, GWS. Yeah. So there's a couple of reasons to this. Kane, I know you probably can't comment on this, but if Sam Taylor's name gets thrown up as an All-Australian player at the moment, it's just wrong.
You're going to spew up?
It's just not right. It would be based on reputation. So last year, he's a top 20 player in the competition, would have been a walk-up if he had have actually qualified. This year, he's outside the top 100. And you see the role that Jack Gunston played on him on the weekend. So important. 4 intercepts from Sam Taylor. It's unheard of. Lockie Whitfield, heading into finals last year, was on fire. We talked about him potentially being an All-Australian player. He was the 23rd best player in the competition last year. He's 155th at the moment. So, and
he's been targeted too.
Yeah, so you're just getting no, and then you think about, we just gave a bit of praise to Harry Himmelberg before, but then you look at those 2 behind the footy, and then you look at some of their connectors and mid-chain sort of players. Bedford's just not having anywhere near the same impact that he had last year. You're not even noticing him at times. Finn Callaghan gets a big rap, and I'm a big rap for him longer term. But the reality is, at the moment, we're just judging 2024 performance. He's not the player at the moment that's been able to impact games like we potentially all thought. And then clearly Toby Green at the moment is just having the year that no one could actually see coming. So it's an amazing turnaround. It's hard to wrap your head around, and just for their sake, you're happy for their sake that it's round 13 and not round 18, round 19, because this is going to take some sort of, it's going to take a lot to correct this profile. They can. We saw what they did in the back end last year.
Where were they about? I know it might have been a few weeks prior to this, and they probably got themselves going by this point in the year. But what, in terms of a win-loss point of view, where were they after round 13 games last year?
They were 5 and 8. 5 and 8 heading in here at this stage.
They're ahead of where they were.
But everyone tells me that, who's going to be the Carlton, who's going to be the GWS of this year. What Carlton and GWS did last year was unheard of.
Yeah.
So you don't just sit back and just assume, they're going to be the Carlton or GWS this year. It's not rare that happens.
Jimmy Bartell showed some pretty damning work rate issues. If their role players aren't working back into defence, and their counter-attack players are getting stifled, as in Whitfield and Sam Taylor, there's a bit going wrong.
There's
a lot going wrong.
Ash and Kelly have hurt as well.
Kelly's a huge out. Kelly's a massive out. But, we're seeing with Collingwood that they've got injuries as well, and other teams have got injuries, and you just get through.
Finn Callaghan against Brisbane Lions about round 6 or 7, That was as good a game as I've seen this year, and he's just fallen off a planet.
Big game this week, Hoyne. Port Adelaide, the last game.
Massive,
on
huge
Sunday.
game.
I don't know. Who knows what happens
Great
in that game. Let's talk about the Cats.
Yeah, so I don't know what you guys thought. I actually thought that was Geelong's best performance for 6 weeks against Sydney.
Chris Scott.
The reality was, and you just talked about how powerful Sydney were. It was amazing. It was just gobsmack how good are this team. But the reality is that this team came up against what everyone knows is the best team in the competition by a long way on their home deck, and with 3 minutes to go, are trailing by 2 goals. They did a lot right, and they play like that. They're going to be thereabouts to challenge for a top six position. But we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Right now, they are such an easy team to work out if they're going to be good or if they're going to be bad, and it's all to do with pressure.
250 in the first quarter.
No, it wasn't that high. But when their pressure is good, they are in it and as good as anyone else in the competition. Their pressure was red hot for 45 minutes, 35-point lead. Next 75 minutes, drops to 160, below average to poor. Sydney get the return.
That graphic, Hoyne.
Sydney get return. I think you have to check the eyes there, G.
No,
I don't know where 250. 250. But I just want to put a player on watch, if we can. And it's Sam De Koning. So Sam De Koning in 2022 was lauded, and rightly so, for what he did. He was AFL number 7 intercept marker in the competition in really his first year in the system playing key defence. He's 66th in the competition at the moment. And this group, their D50 is the worst defensive 50 in the competition for 6 weeks after being the second best in the competition. They're the easiest or second easiest team to beat in a one-on-one contest after being the second hardest. Tom Stewart is getting a lot of attention, and everyone knows that. That's obvious. But some of these other guys need to pick up a bit of slack. Jack Henry's going well, but this guy, Joel Amartey on the weekend looks so dangerous. Samson Ryan the week before looked so dangerous. This guy just needs to get going. He's going to have a big game in 2 weeks' time. I'm just putting him on watch. If it was in the gun segment, that you and him do, you and Kingy do, Kane, he'll be
fair, Matty Lloyd last night on Footy Classified, I think he said needs to toughen up. And he showed some vision of that and basically said exactly that, Hoyne, because Tom Stewart has been taken care of and the attention has gone there. He's got to be the one that he hasn't been. And Lord, I wouldn't go with that lightly. He just wants him to toughen up a little bit, and your numbers solidify those comments last night. What about the Crows? What is going on? Is it fixable or not?
Corey, boring Crows, and I don't know why. So I think everyone last year really enjoyed the way that they played. They played aggressive footy, chaotic footy. There was no sort of real control in their games in terms of where they sat for marks last year. Only 88 marks per game on average last year, which was bottom 4, bottom 5 in the competition. So the ball was in motion. We talked a lot about the similarities between how they played and Collingwood played for a lot of last year. Balls in motion, chaos, great to watch. Last 3 weeks, they've taken 100+ marks. They took 113 marks against Richmond for 41, 46 entries, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And they took 100+ marks against Hawthorn for 41 entries. Their 2 best games, their 2 best wins this year were against Port Adelaide and Carlton, where they're around about that 100-mark average. And then one of the best games of footy that we've watched this year was against Brisbane, and they took 60 or 57 marks for the game. Just, I think, whether through a lack of confidence, but you don't want to see Adelaide playing this controlled game. They don't control and possess the footy like a Sydney or a Brisbane do. They don't have the skill to be able to do that. Get creative, get more dare, and take away this game. I don't want to see 3-figure marks for Adelaide. I want to see
Run and
70
gun.
or 80 and get the chaos and get the pressure back into your game.